Hi there, I'm Noah Bradley and this is Handmade House TV. On this week's episode, I thought we'd talk a little bit about yet another kind of hole that we encounter when doing construction. Last week, if you remember, we talked about my well and how it became a dry hole at the end of drilling it, and how through some modern technology tricks of hydrofracking, we were able to actually get a good supply of drinking water from that well. But today we want to talk about a different kind of hole, and that is the hole that's left over through the process of excavation. So stay tuned. All right, today I'm standing at the end of my driveway of my new property, and as you can see behind me is one of the stone columns that we built at the end of the driveway that stands guard, protects our new property. I keep a chain across it to keep unwanted people out of it, and they're ornate enough that they add more value to my property. And in the process of building stone columns, the first thing you want to do is you want to dig down below the frost line to keep the soil from heaving up and down. That tall structures like stone columns in particular, it doesn't take a whole lot of lifting and dropping before they get a little bit of tilt to it, and once a stone object has a little bit of an angle to it, it's not long before it's brought down to the ground. So the first thing we do is dig down and then start filling it back up with stone in order to create the stone columns. But it never fails that we're left with a hole once we finish building the stone column, more or less a ditch around the entire column. And if you see behind me here, I'll step out of the picture a little bit. You can see that there's quite a pile of, I guess you could call that soil left over from the excavation. And typically it's when you're building something out of stone, there's always a lot of leftover stone scraps. And when you're building a home, there's a lot of scraps as well. And typically it's almost like a magnet to dispose of your scraps by throwing them in the hole and filling it up. And then at the end, you can just sort of cover it over with a little bit of dirt and everything looks smooth and fine. The downside of that, obviously, is the fact that stone columns in particular draw the desire for landscaping. So the individuals come in to do the work on the home, get everything looking good and leave, and then the homeowners come back to do a little bit of planting. And so they'll start digging around the stone columns or around the foundation of your house, and suddenly they're digging up everything that was disposed of and buried. So one of the advantages to building one's own home, to building one's own stone columns, is that you're there to do that. You're the person that carries it not only from the construction of the columns, but you're also the person that does the planting. So you're there to see the process through from beginning to end. So you want to make sure and halt it and avoid the temptation of throwing all that rubble in there, and that before you close things up, you go ahead and do your plantings as well, and you knock it all out. You save that. If you don't have the time to do it right the first time, you'll never want to have the time to do it right a second time. So I have been procrastinating, and that's fairly typical when building a lot of different things, juggling a lot of things at one time. But today I have gone out to the store and I bought some soil supplements, some fertilized garden soil, more or less, to mix in with this inferior soil that I have here. What the soil that I have here is basically this section of my property is what we call around here Virginia red clay. All you got to do is take it, mix a little bit of sand into it, throw it in a form, and set it out in the sun for a few weeks, and you got brick. So it's not the greatest planting material in the world. It holds moisture once it gets wet, but once it dries out, it's hard as a rock. So it's a good idea for me to mix in some of this nice garden potting soil before I do any planting. And the first thing that I do with it is that I open the bag up and I pour some down in the hole to go ahead and create a layer of nice soil against the hard compacted bottom of the hole, and then I'll dig around a little bit and mix it in. And next I'll throw some of this soil on top of the clay pile that I have here, and as well take my shovel and mix it in a little bit here. And next of all, I'll start shoveling the soil into the hole until I get about to the height that I want to start planting my new plants. One thing that's always been attractive with regard to stonework are climbing plants. It never fails that almost any vintage structure that someone will plant some kind of climbing vine up against it, whether or not it's a rose or some kind of well, here today I went ahead and bought myself some clematis that is very attractive. It grows really nice in my area, and it tends to bloom all summer long with very large, beautiful blooms. And the planting itself is not too overwhelming. It won't cover the stonework so much that you don't even know you have stone columns. And it's always wise when you're planting clematis to plant some kind of small, short ground cover that will shade the roots around it. So I've chosen to go with some lily of the valley, which will grow really nice and look natural here in this wooded setting. Now I'll probably come in soon and bring in a load of mulch and throw down once I see some green shoots starting to come up. I don't want to bury these fresh shoots and keep them from coming up. So I'll make sure that the soil will stay moist. Once I have some plants up, then I'll carefully come in and mulch around the columns, and then this aspect of my project will be complete. All right, thanks for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next week here on Handmade House TV. You guys take care.